Hello everybody, my name is Kat Bowser. I'm your resident fantasy therapist and welcome to my channel. Those of you who are brand new, welcome. Those of you who are returning, welcome back. Always good to see you again. For those of you who are new, my name is Kat Bowser. I am a licensed therapist, but I am also an author working on my first novel. And on my channel, I like to talk about what I consider to be the heart of writing, the characters. And the heart of the characters is in their psychology. So we will be digging into tropes, character, plot, world building, all from a psychological angle, because I think it adds a genuineness to your story. So for today, we're going to be doing second video in a series I've started on world building, specifically world building cultures. And today we're talking about beliefs. So when I say beliefs, I want to make one thing clear. I am not talking about religion. It's another video. That will probably honestly be the next video because it does tie into this one, but I want to make it clear they are different. And if you have a character, for example, who is what we would call an atheist, doesn't believe in anything, just believes in science, and that as an explanation for everything that's happened, these still apply. So I just want to make it clear that's why I have that distinction. So first and foremost, beliefs. This is a very, very broad topic. I could probably spend an hour just listing off the different types of beliefs that you could incorporate into your characters and into your world. But since we don't have that kind of time, I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to limit it to, when I talk about beliefs, I'm talking about ideas and predispositions in a way that your characters have on aspects of how the world works. I think the easiest way to narrow this down is to consider roles. And when we consider different roles in psychology, we have what we call circles of influence. So I figure what I'll do is I will go through each of them one at a time and kind of give you guys not only an idea of what I'm talking about, but how you can develop these so that they make sense and so they stay consistent, and also so they make your characters interesting. So first and foremost, the innermost circle is just you. Just you. So this would be a person's personal moral beliefs. For example, what do they think that they are allowed to accomplish in their world? What do they think they are capable of accomplishing? What do they think about why they think about things the way they do? This is like the introspective portion, so to speak. It is influenced by all the other circles, so I'm hoping this will make more sense as I go on. But that's the innermost circle. It's just your own thoughts and beliefs. And this is interesting because we really don't form our own solid sense of morality until about age 12-ish. 12 to 13-ish, depending. Now, it's not to say that you can't have characters that develop them younger. I definitely do. I have characters that develop them as young as 7. But as a general rule, we develop them around the teenage years because the teenage years are really where we start to do a lot of self-discovery. Okay, so the second circle of influence is intermediate family. So these are going to be people that your character interacts with on a daily basis. As a general rule, it's going to be like mother, father, any siblings, occasionally grandparents, things like that. People that you talk to every day. And the beliefs that we're talking about here are, what roles do people play in the family? Like, for example, I will give you guys an example from one of my current work in progress. I have a character, Suna. She is the daughter of the chief of her tribe. And so her father is in charge. And in their culture, her father has absolute say. He has complete control over what happens, who does what, and in a way, almost over who thinks what. Like, there is definitely a sense of if you think differently from father, you're not going to voice it. You don't say it because it's considered disrespectful. And it does tie into their religion a little bit, but overall, so Suna has this idea on roles of she is supposed to fulfill whatever role she is told to fulfill, whether it's to be a mother, whether it's to be a cook, whatever it might be. Now, I will make it clear, part of the story is her figuring out that she doesn't have to stay in this situation. There are other options out there for her. And that's actually a good lead into the next circle of influence, which is friends. These become very important when we're in our teenage years because it's through friends that we discover different viewpoints from our own family. So, for example, with Suna, she becomes friends with Tima, who is the prince of another clan. And their clan is very different in that they believe in equal voice for each person. There is one person that is in charge, but they gain advice and ideas from everyone in the tribe. So when she starts hanging out with Tima, he's giving her some ideas and showing her some things that she is not used to seeing. She's not used to being told that her opinion matters or that she can create and develop her own opinion. But now she's being told that she can, and she starts to explore it a little bit, and therein lies her conflict, deciding what to do. I'm not going to tell you guys more than that, except that it's a fun journey for her, and I'm enjoying writing it, so I'll leave it at that. But regarding beliefs, regarding friends, what types of friends do your characters think that they're okay to hang out with? What types of people are okay for them to hang out with? Why do people act a certain way? where do other beliefs come from? Where do other languages come from? That's when we start asking all these other questions, because now we are at a point where we're exposed to other groups and other ideas outside of our family that we see every day. So this is really where our beliefs start to kind of be challenged and developed. So you may decide to stick with your family's beliefs, and that's fine. You may decide that, okay, I think this portion of my family's beliefs makes sense. I don't agree with this one, so I'm going to change my thoughts on this one. That's what happens with friends. And that's why, especially in the teenagers, friendships become so important. That's usually when you will notice that teenagers don't rely as much on their families as they do on their friends. Friends become more important because they are literally discovering who they are. And they have already had, 12 plus years with their family to get the influence from them that has developed them to this point. Now they have to branch out and find out more about themselves that is not reliant on that family structure. All right, next circle would be, I'm going to call it community. So this is work, this is school, these are neighbors, people that you interact with, but you may not know on an intimate level. And this is where you get into kind of the cultural norms. So like, trying to think of a good example. Oh, okay. So with my stonemen, one of their cultural norms is that when you meet someone new, they, like, let's say they come to your home or whatever, you're meeting them the first time. It is considered extremely disrespectful to not offer them food. In fact, it could even be seen as an outright threat to them to not offer them food. So that is one cultural norm. Another one, like from our world, might be, is your cultural norm that you smile at people when you see them the first time, or do you just keep going along your way, you don't interact? Is it considered normal to open doors for people? You guys see what I mean? That there's all these beliefs that really feed into your world that honestly we don't notice because they are so ingrained in us. And that's why when we meet people from different cultures who do things differently, that's why it suddenly clicks with us. Oh, oh, this is a belief I didn't even know I had. And so that's always fun. So, one thing I suggest to you guys actually, if you're trying to narrow down different beliefs you want your characters to be fully developed in, I would actually look up cultural norms for a culture outside of your own, and it will really point out differences to you. Like for another example, in a lot of Asian countries, particularly Japan, when you go into your school, there is a locker to put your shoes because you take off your shoes when you go into a building in Japan. Actually, if you look at even musicals that are done in Japan, if it's for a little kid, no matter what the musical is, usually the kid will just be in socks or their bare feet because they don't want to confuse the child by having them wear shoes, even if they're doing a play or something like that. So that's another example. And then you have what I consider to be the widest circle, which is the world. So cultural norms for the world. That one's fun because for the most part, um, there's very little with at least our world that I can use as a demonstration for that because we have not yet found life outside of Earth that we are aware of anyway. But if you're doing science fiction where there's a lot of different planets and cultures and things like that, you might decide, okay, this culture, like, oh, Star Trek, the Vulcans, logic-based society, and that seems to be worldwide, at least from the last time I checked out Star Trek. Um, that's an example of, say, a worldwide cultural norm that is considered odd when it interacts with other cultures. The prospect, for example, of money. In Star Trek, I don't believe they use money anymore, at least within the United Federation of Planets. Um, so that's something to consider for your world. Is there currency? And if there is currency, is it the same across the board? Do everybody use different ones? Do you have one culture that does bartering and another one doesn't? These are all things to consider. And like I said, there's a reason I can't just list out all these beliefs because there's so many of them. But again, something to keep in mind is look up other cultures and see what their cultural norms are. I actually type in what are some cultural traditions of XYZ and see what comes up. And it makes me think about my own. And I think that's a great experiment when you're creating a culture. So, when it comes to creating these beliefs in your culture, what are things to keep in mind? First off, like I mentioned, the circles of influence, you're gonna have different varying degrees. So if you have a character like I mentioned, Suna, she's having a conflict in that she has her family's cultural norms, but she has her own that she's developing because of her interaction with other cultures. And so she's going to be different than, say, someone else from her home clan who has not been exposed to those other cultural norms. So they're going to clash. There's going to be a difference of opinion there. And I think the important thing to remember is that, as a general rule, we think very egocentrically when it comes to our own beliefs. Not necessarily because we want to be cruel or anything like that, but because that's what we know. And a lot of times we don't even realize that that's what we're doing until we're suddenly faced with someone who is different, who does not do it the same way. And that connection, that clash, is what really makes us think. So if you have a culture that is completely isolated, they're probably going to be very set in their ways and in their thoughts because they've had no interaction with people that are different. And having said that, you're going to have variations within a culture. Just because you have an overall culture that, say, is very patriarchal doesn't mean everybody's going to follow that. If you have someone who is brought up in a family who believes in equality, even though the overall culture does not, the family one is going to take precedent because they're going to have more time to have influence on the person. Now, when they grow up and they're faced with the culture, then you're going to have conflict, and conflict's always great in fiction. That's what makes it interesting. So that is one example. And I think that is generally the overall view I want you guys to take away, is that consider what this person knows and what they've been exposed to, because that is what's going to determine how they react and how they change and if they change. So those are fun. Those are always interesting. And like I said, I think religion does play into this. So that's why in the next video, I think I definitely will go into the religious aspect and developing a religion. So until next time, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, make sure you leave a comment or suggestions below. I always love to respond to those. If you guys want to know every time I upload a new video, make sure you subscribe and ring the bell, and you will get notifications when I upload. I try to upload every Thursday and every Sunday, with occasional bonus videos in between. And until next time, I hope you guys have a good one.